Discovery of thousands of fetal remains in Indiana at an abortionist's home last year horrified us all, highlighted a disturbing trend that Indiana has taken the lead in rectifying. This bill is our chance to fix the problem nationally. I believe all human life deserves a dignified burial, and fetal remains deserve to be treated with respect, not as medical waste. Sadly, irreverence towards fetal remains, like Dr. Cloffer's in our case, grotesque collection, is not an isolated incident. For example, in 2015, a Minnesota hospital threw out the body of a stillborn baby with dirty laundry. Indiana has led the way. Governor Mike Pence signed a law in 2016 protecting the dignity of fetal remains, upheld by the Supreme Court last year in Box versus Planned Parenthood. This legislation, the Dignity for Aborted Children Act, builds on Indiana's success and provides guidelines for handling fetal remains and penalties for failing to respect the sanctity of human life, and ensures that crimes like Dr. Cloffer's have consequences. What the bill does would require abortion providers to dispose of the remains of unborn children just as any other human remains, or to release the remains to the family should the family wish to receive them. This bill does not tell anyone what to do with their body. It only holds human fetuses to a higher standard of dignity than medical waste. Last week, this body could not agree to ban abortions after science tells us fetuses are capable of feeling pain. This body could not agree to ensure that babies born alive after botched abortions should receive the same standard of care as a baby born in a hospital. At the very least, we should be able to agree to treat the remains of unborn children with the reverence befitting a human life rather than as medical waste. Given this, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Help be discharged from further consideration of Senate Bill 2590, and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered, read a third time, and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Madam President.
Senator from Washington.
Madam President, reserving the right to object. We have a serious public health crisis on our hands right now, and we expect it to get much worse. Right now, families across this country are actually looking to Congress to put partisanship aside and put their needs first, and counting on us to listen to experts and make decisions that are guided by science, not by ideology. They need to know that our number one priority and what we should be talking about is public health today. So instead of discussing this harmful bill that will gut reproductive rights and put unnecessary restrictions on medical providers and undermine medical research, which is an absolute non-starter and the absolute last thing we should be doing right now, I think we should be focused on what families actually need us to be focused on, which is the coronavirus outbreak and what it means for them and what we are doing about it. The news of this virus is spreading throughout the country, and the deaths and the illness and the confusion it has caused in my home state of Washington and elsewhere is beyond alarming. The Trump administration has fallen far short of its responsibilities to Washington state and to communities nationwide. Now, I am pleased Democrats and Republicans in Congress were able to put partisanship aside to hammer out the robust emergency supplemental funding agreement that was announced earlier today. It's an agreement that goes well beyond President Trump's totally inadequate request in order to actually meet the needs we're hearing about from the officials on the front lines of this crisis. like reimbursing states and local governments who have shouldered the cost of this response so far, or the need to support research so we can develop new treatments and diagnostic tests and vaccines, and the need to make sure that those are available to everyone. This agreement helps us prepare for what's next by providing funding to shore up our store of medical supplies and support community health centers in underserved areas and bolster global health and public health preparedness programs. So I'm working to make sure we get that bill signed into law as soon as possible, and I will continue to follow it closely because experts have already made it very clear this is not going to be over soon. And while the funding is a great step, we need to make sure it's not the last one. It is very critical that we continue listening to our health experts, providing needed resources, and preparing for what's next, including what this will mean for families' day-to-day lives and for people who can't take a day off work without losing a paycheck, or don't have affordable child care if their school closes, or don't have a health insurance, or who are experiencing homelessness. So I hope my Republican colleagues will think long and hard about what their priorities are in the midst of this and choose to refocus their energy on working with us to address the urgent issues of the day. So instead of distracting us from serious work and wasting time we don't have. So I object, Madam President.
Ms. Hurd.
Madam President,
Senator from Indiana.
I think if you continue to make the argument with women's health care and that it's mutually exclusive, to consider that, and you define what we're talking about here, banning abortions where there is pain felt capability, or not trying to preserve the life of a baby born through a botched abortion, adding this as well, not treating the fetal remains with the dignity that they deserve, I think it's increasingly difficult to make the argument that we constantly hear about women's health care. They're not mutually exclusive. This is something that shouldn't be put into the category that it would impact any of that by putting this into effect. I yield the floor.